I just learned how to summon a demon. When I first stumbled across the book, I thought it was a joke. It was in the basement of the old university library, buried under a pile of dusty, forgotten volumes on medieval history. Its cover was plain black, the title scrawled in faded silver lettering, Daemonium Adiunctum. As I flipped through the pages, I realized it was a grimy, handwritten manual filled with archaic symbols, odd diagrams, and long, Latin instructions. My eyes landed on a particular section, De Principiis Evocationis, which looked like a step-by-step guide on summoning a demon. I wasn't sure why I wanted to try it. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the sheer absurdity of the whole thing. After all, demons weren't real, right? The idea that I could follow some half-baked instructions in a forgotten book and actually summon one was laughable. So, I checked out the book under a librarian's bewildered gaze and brought it home. That night, I set up in my living room, following the book's instructions as best I could. According to the manual, summoning required only a few items: a candle, a circle of salt, and a drop of blood. I managed to scavenge the salt and the candle from my kitchen, but when it came to blood, I hesitated. The book insisted it was a requirement. Blood is the bridge between worlds, it said, and a single drop is all that's needed. My hands shook as I pricked my finger with a sewing needle. A tiny bead of blood formed, dark and glistening, and I let it fall into the circle. I watched, holding my breath, half expecting something to happen instantly. But nothing did. The candle flickered, the shadows stayed where they were, and the room was silent. I laughed a little at myself. Of course, nothing was going to happen. Feeling foolish, I blew out the candle and cleaned up the salt. But as I was turning to head to bed, I heard it, a faint, whispering sound, like a breath being drawn through clenched teeth. I froze. The whisper grew louder, filling the room with a hissing, guttural sound, and I could feel the air grow heavy, thick with something I couldn't name. My heart raced as the shadows on the walls started to stretch and swirl, twisting into strange, curling shapes that seemed to move with a life of their own. In the center of the room, where I'd drawn the circle, a shape began to emerge. It started as a dark smudge, almost like a stain on the air, but it quickly grew, expanding and solidifying into something tall, impossibly tall, with limbs that stretched and folded like a twisted tree. I wanted to scream, to run, but my feet wouldn't move. My mind struggled to process what I was seeing. The thing in front of me was barely a shape, more like a shadow wearing the suggestion of a face. Its eyes were hollow, empty voids that seemed to devour the light around them. It had no mouth, but I could feel its gaze, sharp and calculating, fixed directly on me. The whispering stopped, replaced by a silence so profound it felt like the world had stopped breathing. Then, in a voice that echoed in my mind, deep and resonant, it spoke. "You have called. I have come." Its voice didn't have sound so much as it had weight, pressing into my thoughts like a heavy stone. My mouth went dry, and I forced myself to respond, my voice barely more than a whisper. I didn't think it would work." The figure tilted its head, a slow, unnatural motion that sent a shiver down my spine. "Most do not." The voice seemed amused, if something that inhuman could even feel amusement. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who? What are you?" The figure's hollow eyes seemed to bore into me, as if peeling away my skin, layer by layer. "I am many things," it replied. "Names are unimportant. You may call me your guest." A knot of fear twisted in my stomach. I had no idea what to do next. The book had only covered how to summon the demon, not what to do once it was actually here. "Why did you come?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You summoned me," it said, as if the answer were obvious. "When one calls, I answer. The question is, what is it you seek?" I stared at it, my mind racing. This was a demon, a creature of darkness. Surely, I could ask it for something. Power, money, knowledge. The possibilities seemed endless, but as I opened my mouth, I found that I didn't actually know what to say. Can you give me anything?" I stammered, feeling ridiculous as soon as the words left my lips. The figure's eyes darkened, and it seemed to grow taller, its presence filling the room, pressing in on me from all sides. "Anything is possible," it said, its voice curling around me like smoke. "But everything has a price." A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I'd read enough folklore to know that dealing with demons was dangerous, that the price they demanded was always more than you could bear. But I'd come this far. I couldn't back out now. What would it cost? The figure leaned closer, its hollow eyes boring into mine. "That depends on what you desire." I felt a surge of courage, or perhaps foolishness, and took a deep breath. "I want knowledge. I want to understand things beyond this world. The secrets of the universe." The demon's hollow eyes seemed to glimmer, and a slow, curling smile formed in the shadows around its face, though it had no mouth. "A lofty request. Knowledge, of course, is not easily given. It requires depth, understanding. And understanding requires sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The shadows around it shifted, swirling like dark smoke. A simple one, a piece of your soul. I felt a jolt of fear, but curiosity held me in place. And what happens if I agree? You will gain what you seek, it replied. But be warned, knowledge is a burden. Once gained, it cannot be unlearned. And each answer will lead you to more questions, each darker than the last. This knowledge will consume you, piece by piece, until there is nothing left but the hunger for more. I hesitated, a voice in the back of my mind screaming at me to stop. But I'd come this far, in the promise of understanding, of knowing things beyond human comprehension. It was intoxicating. All right, I whispered. I accept. The figure stretched out a hand, long and twisted, like a branch clawing its way out of the earth. I reached out, my fingers trembling, and the moment I touched its hand, a wave of icy coldness surged through me. My vision went black, and 1,000 images flooded my mind. Visions of otherworldly realms, incomprehensible creatures, ancient symbols that seemed to burn themselves into my brain. When I opened my eyes, the demon was gone. I was alone in my living room, the candle snuffed out, the salt circle smeared across the floor. But my mind was alive with images, words, and symbols I'd never seen before. I understood things I couldn't put into words, ideas that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. And then I felt it, the hunger. The knowledge I'd gained had only scratched the surface, leaving me desperate for more, gnawing at me like an itch I couldn't scratch. I'd paid a piece of my soul, and now I knew I'd never stop searching, never stop reaching for more, even as it consumed everything I was. As the days passed, I became hollow, obsessed. My nights were filled with dark dreams, my days haunted by whispers of things I'd seen but couldn't comprehend. I realized too late that the demon's warning had been true. Knowledge had become a curse, an endless, insatiable hunger. And every time I close my eyes, I can feel it, watching, waiting, knowing that one day, when I've given all I have, it will come to claim the rest.